I still have a few more quotes that I need people to read, and I noticed 2 people sneak in. So I would like to ask for you guys to read. Make sure that that makes sense to you, please. And I've got a couple more if anybody wants to read too. I wasn't sure how many people would be here this morning with time stage. I figured some people would probably not be, but
you're lucky to see us.
2 more, last 2. Check. Thank you. So I decided that for this, I don't know, every time I speak, every time I do something with the speaking engagement, I want to do something that is a little bit different, something that challenges, something that puts me in an uncomfortable place. Because obviously, being somebody who is used to talking in front of crowds, I want to do something that's uncomfortable for me, to push myself a little bit further. So when I was putting together today, I was trying to decide how I wanted to go about it, because I wanted to talk about my journey as a writer. And in order to do that, I had to do some pretty personal reflection, as you can imagine. But I didn't feel like my voice was strong enough, because my voice is just mine. So what I did is there is a placemat, for lack of better words, that's out there in the, what I'll call the fellowship hall. I don't know what its actual name is, but that works. And I looked over it and I took a picture of it, and I found all these incredible, most of them were probably more Unitarian than they were Unitarian Universalists, but it didn't really matter. They were part of this faith. So I wanted to get their words on their life journeys. I wanted to see their reflections on what they thought of their lives, of writing, and whatnot. So I collected those and ended up with 45 quotes. Now, obviously, 45 quotes is not going to work for this time frame. I'm not even sure that the amount of quotes that I picked are going to work for this time frame, but we're going to try and work them as quickly as we can. And I ended up slimming it down, I think, to 21. We'll see how far we go. So I'm going to ask for number 1 to be read.
Suffering has been stronger than all other teaching and has taught me to understand what your heart used to be. I have been bent and broken, but I hope into a better shape. Charles Dickens, from Great Expectations.
So my writer journey started when I was 15 years old. And I pulled out the first piece of poetry that I wrote, because that's where I started. It's called Sad Story. I'm going through a crisis. I cannot get a job. Although I really want one, all I can do is sob. It's illegal, my mother says. It's against the law. The person to blame who put me in this crisis, to put it simply, is my pa. He done went, messed up our lives, and I want to know what gives him the right. He did it wrong, got put in jail, but we're the ones going through hell. Trying to make both ends meet while bill collectors heat our seat. He's in jail, hopefully for the rest of his life, but who's going to take care of his children and wife? Now, obviously, dark, but it's where I was. You know, I was 15 years old. I was incredibly hurt, incredibly broken, suffering. And, you know, it was all because my father had just gotten thrown in jail for molesting both me and my sister. And that's something that I don't share lightly, but I have to share, because for me, the way to deal with my pain was to talk about it. It was the only way that I could do it, other than writing about it. And it became a really dark place for me. I became one of those goth kids. Black nails, black hair, you know, all that kind of stuff. And it was that, along with my writing, was pretty much the only thing that got me through that period. I spent a lot of days in my room. I put blankets over the mirrors because I couldn't stand to look at myself. It was just a really dark, angry place that I was in. And I turned to writing because I didn't You know, even I didn't know how to talk to my family about the stuff that I was going through, even though my mom knew. She became a social recluse, went back to her bedroom and stayed in her room for almost 3 years. My sister got put in state's custody, so she wasn't there for me to talk to. So I kind of retreated into my writing. It was the only way that I knew to deal with everything that was going on. So I'll fast forward a little bit. When I was 17 years old, actually, I'm going to go ahead and have quote 2 read.
Caresses, expressions of one sort or another, are necessary to the life of the affections as leaves are to the life of a tree. If they are wholly restrained, love will die at the roots. Nathaniel Hawthorne.
The reason why I felt that this quote was important was because of the fact that, especially when you're a kid like me, and I was very, very affectionate. I wanted to hug everybody. I wanted to love everybody. And my mom was the exact opposite of that. She didn't like touching me. She didn't like touching my sister. The only time that we really got a lot of anything at home was, you know, when we were being punished. And so I grew up thinking that, you know, I had to find alternate sources to get affection. And it really kind of affected who I became for at least the next couple of years. I just became really withdrawn and didn't really want to interact with the outside world because it was too hard. I didn't know how to do that with me being so different from everybody else. Go to quote 3.
I'd rather learn from one bird how to sing than teach 10,000 stars how not to dance. E. Cummings.
That quote was important to me because, and I don't mean to paint my mom in a negative light. My mom did the best she could. She was suffering. I knew that. But I was in choir. My mom never came to one of my choir performances. I was in art. I did art. Not a 1. Talent shows. Nada. There was nothing that I could do that my mom would come and support me because she was so stuck in her grief over everything that was going on. And it made me withdraw even more. Fast forward, I'm 17 now, and I've just figured out, I've known for a while that I was different from other people, and I don't really know how to handle that difference, so I retreat even further. And I started writing love poetry to another boy in my class. Now, when you live in Dixon, Tennessee, not exactly the best idea. Even stupider still is to give him the poetry that you've written about him, because the next thing I know, I'm getting pulled into the guidance counselor's office, and there are very few things that are more uncomfortable than a 17-year-old boy sitting there and a 50-something-year-old woman sitting there going, "There's nothing wrong with being a homosexual." Yeah, it gets really, really uncomfortable because and it was one of the few times in my life when I could feel anger just waving off of me, because here I was doing something I thought was sweet, you know. Now, this guy ended up coming out as gay like way later, and I think that I knew that, but that doesn't really matter. It was just a really uncomfortable time for me. And again, retreat into writing, because that's my way of dealing. So I wrote, this is the love poem that I wrote him. I brought it because I happened to find it. Love forbidden is love still, grown against the iron of will. The whispers of love wilt in the wind, moaning his name over and over again. And still I stand to face those winds of lust, caught in a whirlpool of emotions and thrust. Hypnotized by the hope of things yet to be, I look into your eyes and this is what I see. Emotions broken, the feelings not shared, through beatings and so forth I'll never be spared. But one solitary moment is all that I need to take over the boundaries of this fantasy. Now, it's not great, I understand that. It's written by a 17-year-old. but it expressed how I was feeling. And I think for me, it's always been, writing has always been very, very therapeutic. I write what you may think that I'm a speaker, I'm really not. I'm a writer to my core. If I don't write it, I don't speak it clearly, probably. Hence. I'm going to go to quote number 4.
Heaven have mercy on us all, Presbyterians and Pagans alike, for we are all somehow dreadfully cracked about the head and sadly need mending. Herman Melville.
Fast forward again a couple of years. Now, when I got out of, well, actually, while I was in college, I got involved in this hardcore Christian church, and I mean like hardcore. Taught me how to hold a sandwich, because straight men only do it a certain way. How to walk and talk, and how to act straight, because being gay was not something that you could do and be a Christian. Trudy and I were talking last week after the sermon, and she kind of brought up how this, she was feeling kind of anxious about what she felt was like an anti-Christian sentiment within the church sometimes. And I think that that's something that we need to be really careful to address. But as Julie and I were talking, the reason why I realized that she might get that is, just speaking from personal experience, I consider myself an injured Christian. I consider myself somebody who was beaten so thoroughly with the Bible that I walked away from that experience feeling like I couldn't be a Christian and be who I was inside. And because of that, for the next couple of years, I was not able to go to any church without getting immensely angry. Quote number 5.
Difficulty, my brother, is the nurse of greatness and a harsh nurse who roughly rocks her foster children into strength and athletic proportion. William C. Bryan.
Difficulty. Difficulty. I say that again because it's something that we all share. I don't lift my struggles or my fight above anybody else's. Pat's been through 91 chemotherapies. That's incredible. Everybody has had their struggle. Everybody has fought to be where they are. And some of us have fought differently, but none of us have fought any harder than anyone else because we're still here. It was difficult for me. I remember one night when I was still involved in that church, sitting in the kitchen floor with a knife to my wrist, just praying to God to have the courage to just end it. Because I had gotten so sick of praying to God to change me and make me into the straight man that I thought I was supposed to be, because that's what I was told I was supposed to be. Number 6.
Speak when you are angry, and you will make the best speech you will ever regret.
Anger was just, I mean, you guys can imagine. I'm sure that every person in this room has dealt with that at some point. Some situation where you were so frustrated that you couldn't change it, and you wanted to find a way to, and you couldn't. And I can't even imagine how many friends, or could have been friends, that I alienated because I was so angry. We would go around while I was in the church, and we would tell people, we would convince people that they were not Christians. We would use the Bible to tell them, no, you're not really a Christian because you're not doing this, or you're not doing this, or you're not doing this. I can only imagine during that 5-year span when I was in that church, how many people I alienated from myself and from their spirituality, because that's what I was convinced the Bible was teaching me to do. Number 7.
It is better to fail in originality than to succeed in imitation. Herman Melville.
One of the things within this church was that we had disciplers. And your discipler was somebody that you went to and you confessed your sin, and you talked about all the ways you had done wrong, and you prayed together, and this was the person that you were supposed to emulate. You were supposed to become like them in Christ. Now, I fought to do that for 5 years. Very, very hard. You can imagine the amount of tears shed to try and convince myself that I didn't want to be like me. This wasn't what I was supposed to be. I was supposed to be this. Fill in the this. Whatever the things that I wasn't, those were the things that I was supposed to be. Obviously, it didn't work. I mean, obviously. But let's go to quote number 8. That's the big, long one.
From the transcendental poet Henry David Thoreau. As a single footstep will not make a path on the earth, so a single thought will not make a pathway in the mind. To make a deep physical path, we walk again and again. To make it a deep mental path, we must think over and over the kind of thoughts we wish to dominate our lives.
While I was in that church, the irony was I had a discipler who gave me this plaque. It was a bright yellow plaque to put on my wall that said, I believe the world is meant to be positive. I would reflect on this plaque, and I would try and think positive while getting all of this negativity and being told that I wasn't who I was supposed to be, and constantly being condemned for being who I am. And I would continue to try and fight to think positive, and these two paths, these two things that I was trying to get, never really meshed. They just kind of fell apart. So I would write these poems and these long essays about myself and how I wasn't what God meant me to be. And I brought an example, maybe not the best one, but this was a piece of poetry that I wrote during the middle of that. The gay life realized and hypnotized, paralyzed by the American dream, with a life, with a wife and kids, and hers and his towels, and he howls and moans and screams as he dreams of a man with plans to love him, tease him, and please him. A straight actor takes back her nights, her life with strife with the man she does love, but wants to leave, but can't. To have at the side and stride on as if nothing happened. Love is all that matters. These two stayed married because she carried and conceived his kids and hers and his towelettes, but she regrets and he regrets, and everyone bets that they wouldn't make it, but she fakes it and he takes it, knowing that she is not in his soul. He lets go, and they separate, but never debate, because love, that is all that matters. This is the type of stuff that I would write over and over again, coming in conflict with myself, trying to figure out who I was supposed to be. I was looking through my notebooks last night and had poem after poem about, God, please make me something different. Help me to be something different, because this isn't who I'm supposed to be. And that's what I kept getting from the church over and over again and over and over again. And after a while, it messes with your head. And even for months after I left that church, I was convinced every single night that if I died that night, I was going to hell. That was just it. That was the end. That's where I was going. There was no ifs, ands, buts about it. That's what was happening. It was a miserable existence. A miserable existence. Quote number 9.
To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. Ralph Waldo Emerson.
I don't think that one really needs explanation. I think that I finally started to figure that out. It helped me to dig out of the rut. I want to skip number 10 for just a moment and go to number 11.
Defeat may serve as well as victory to shake the soul and let the glory out.
So after 5 years of being in this church, I finally was kicked out. They said that I had not repented of my sin enough, that I was never going to repent of my sin enough, and that I just didn't need to be a part of this church because I was giving it a bad name. Now, this was all because of not who I chose to have sex with, but who I chose to love. That's how I look at it. It wasn't about a choice that I made in my sexuality. It was about a choice that I made to be comfortable with what I already was feeling inside. Number 10.
A wonderful fact to reflect upon, that every human creature is constituted to be that profound secret and mystery to every other. Charles Dickens, A Tale of Two Cities.
Realizing that there is this beauty within each one of us, realizing that I was exactly who I was supposed to be, and that was the beauty. That was the heart of what I needed to understand, and it was something that obviously I wasn't getting from that church. So I needed to be a part of it. I needed to be defeated. I needed to get away from it and find something new. And I think that honestly, it's one of the biggest reasons why when I started coming to a UU church, I felt at home almost immediately, is because that's one of the things that we appreciate and celebrate, is the fact that we are all mysteries. We are all different. And that absolutely is a truth that needs to be understood and lived throughout. Number 12.
A man may fulfill the object of his existence by asking a question he cannot answer and attempting a task he cannot achieve. Oliver Wendell Holmes, Sr.
I love that particular quote because of the fact that that's exactly how I felt after I got out of that church. Is I wanted something outside of myself. I wanted something bigger that I knew that maybe I would never achieve, but something that I didn't have to rely on myself to accomplish. Because I'd worked for 5 years to try and find my own salvation, to try and work for my own salvation. Those things obviously never worked out. I was so grateful to have something that was bigger than me that I could reflect on, so I didn't have to reflect on how miserable I was myself. Number 13.
To throw oneself on the side of the oppressed is the only dignified thing to do in life. Edward Martin.
It's such a powerful statement, to be as short as it is. Can you read it again, please?
Mm-hmm. To throw oneself to the side of the oppressed is the only dignified thing to do in life.
When I was in my early 20s, this is when I started to become an activist. This is when I started to get involved in causes. I started to help out with Nashville Cares. I started to do things for the Laramie Project and started raising money for various foundations that helped out not only, GLBT, gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgendered, but also just any minorities out there. To figure out that you may think that you may have the perfect vision of your life, but is your life really what it could be if you were out there fighting for all these other causes, if you're out there doing things for other people? And I started to understand that, and I started writing poetry that I could submit to those magazines. I started doing fundraisers by writing stories for various foundations and charities and whatever, doing whatever I could to use what talent I have. I did the Laramie Project, which is it's about Matthew Shepard and what happened in Wyoming, the gay student who was tied to a fence and left there to die, and they created the Matthew Shepard Foundation. Over 3 years, I directed productions of the Laramie Project as a fundraiser for that and managed to raise over $5,000. This is when I started to get involved and started to realize that I had been working for the last couple of years to try and find something bigger than myself, and the bigger than myself was already there. I just had to stop looking at myself and actually start interacting with the other world and start getting involved in those that were oppressed, whatever that oppression might be. Whether it's women's rights, which I'm still a hardcore advocate of, gay rights, whether it's, I saw a video online about them closing down Guantanamo Bay. Anything that I can find to make people more aware that there's something bigger, because I've noticed for myself, like any time that I get involved in things that are bigger than me, it makes me feel better about me. I know that's selfish, but I think that there's a reason for that. I think that once you get into that headspace, you start realizing that your troubles are not so big. That homelessness and, people starving to death and brutality against women in other countries, things like this, those are the bigger issues. Not whether or not you're able to make it to the grocery store before it closes. And reflecting on bigger things than that, it's really what made me happy. Going to number 14.
We cannot live only for ourselves. A million fibers connect us with other humans. Herman Melville, with my improvement.
I think that I was looking at what we believe as Unitarian Universalists and the web of interconnectedness. And I think that that summed up perfectly in that quote, because I began to realize that when I would go out, and even something as simple as me smiling at Janet, and her smiling, and her giving him $1 when he, had a parking meter that was about to run out, and then him, and it trickles. It becomes something different. It becomes something beautiful when you realize that you may have had a crappy day before you smiled at her, but then your day's a little brighter, and her day's a little brighter, and his day's a little brighter, and then her day becomes a little brighter, and this beautiful web of realizing that everything that we do, I try to make a point of going out and giving at least 5 people a compliment every day. Random people. Go up to somebody you don't know and say, that's a beautiful necklace. And watch them smile and walk off. It's simple little things that don't cost us anything at all, but help us to become better people and help other people to move out into the universe in a brighter path. It was when I started to realize that and started to have that revelation, it was just a beautiful thing how much you could affect somebody's day just by calling them and saying, hey, I was thinking about you. Didn't really have anything else I wanted to say. I just wanted to tell you I was thinking about you. Number 15. We're almost done.
Words, so innocent and powerless as they are, as standing in a dictionary, how potent for good and evil they become in the hands of one who knows how to combine them. Nathaniel Hawthorne.
I don't really know that I could put anything as an addendum to that to make it more beautiful in the way that it's said. Realize your words have effect, whether they're written, whether they're spoken, sometimes even when they're thought. They can change a reality for you, for anybody else. Number 16.
Every great architect is necessarily a great poet. He must be a great original interpreter of his time, his day, his age. Frank Lloyd Wright.
I love that quote because Julie and I constantly have this conversation about what it means to be a writer. what it means to be an artist in any sense of the word. It doesn't matter whether it's creating things with clay or, doing finger painting. Whatever you choose to do as your art, we go through this thing of, I don't know if I should do it because, it doesn't, everybody else has already done it, and, I couldn't do it better than them, and, it's just, there's no point in me doing it. There is. You have your journey. Each person in this room has their own unique take on history. Lucy, everything that you've experienced in your life makes you what you are and who you are. And I could learn so much from that. Boom! Head explosion. Brain just everywhere, all over the wall. Realizing that every person that you talk with, every person you interact with, and that's why it's so easy not to get in arguments with people, because ultimately you can say, you know what, your life experience is different than my life experience, so it's led you to different conclusions than mine has. You're absolutely right, I'm absolutely right, let's move on. Once you realize that, you stop arguing with people. Because you just kind of go, okay, you know what? What you have experienced is absolutely true to you. I love the last part of that, of his time, of his day, of his age. Everybody experiences that differently. If you ever think, what's the point of me writing a journal? Did Anne Frank think that? She gave us a unique experience, a different perspective than anybody else on earth could have given us. That's something to think about. I always encourage people, if you want to be a writer, be a writer. Do it. What's the worst that's going to happen? Nobody's going to read it? Well, if you're writing for other people to read it, you're probably writing for the wrong reason anyway. With that, that's a perfect segue into number 17.
Love. Fall in love and stay in love. Write only what you love and love what you write. The key word is love. You have to get up in the morning and write something you love, something to live for. Ray Bradbury.
The reason why I got into writing, most of the stuff that I write has GLBT characters in it. Biggest reason why I write that is because that's what I love. That's what I feel passionate about. Write what's true to you. If your love is gardening, write about gardening. It's that simple. No more complex than that. If you have passion for what you're writing, other people will find passion in it too. Whereas if you're writing to meet a niche market, or you're writing because you want to be the next Twilight, or the next Stephen King, or the next whatever, ultimately you will end up failing. You may end up succeeding financially, but you'll feel that inner, like you've sold out. You've written something that you're not true to. For me, I don't consider myself a successful writer in a commercial sense, but everything that I've written, that I've put out in the world, I'm proud of, because I know that there was a bit of me within what I wrote. Whether that was my pain, my happiness, my joy, my love, my passion, whatever. There was a bit of me within everything that I put out there. And I hope that that will continue on. Number 18.
I pick my favorite quotes and store them in my mind as ready armor, offensive or defensive, amid the struggle of this turbulent existence. Robert Burns.
That's kind of what we're doing today. I hope that within all of the quotes that you've heard, Maybe you've heard a few you recognize. Maybe there were a few new ones. Maybe you can find somebody that you want to research. I cannot tell you how much I learned from doing this about other people that were in the Unitarian faith and who stood up for the rights of the oppressed, who were these incredible writers, who, and when I was looking at the list, I was kind of amazed because I was like, wow, a lot of these are what are considered classics now. There's a reason for that. Number 19, one of my favorites.
I am not afraid of storms, for I am learning how to sail my ship. Louisa May Alcott.
It's all about riding the waves. It's all about accepting what's coming to you and just going with it and saying, you know what, I'm good. I may not be happy, I may not be safe, but it's what's happening and I'm just going to go with it. Number 20.
Let us not pray to be sheltered from dangers, but to be fearless when facing them. And I wish Casey was here to pronounce this.
I have no idea. Rabindranath Tagore. I think that's how it's said. It may be wrong. And we're going to finish up on number 21. 21. Who has 21? I do? Okay. Then I'll read it. 21 is, easy reading is damn hard writing. Nathaniel Hawthorne. There are things that I have written that you would think were, I'm done. No. It is not that simple. The more you try to make something relatable to other people, the more you're going to look at it, at least if you're like me, you're going to look at it and go, oh God, there's somebody I left out of this list of minorities, or there's somebody I left out of this particular, I'm trying to get this point of view, and this is the people that I left out that aren't going to be able to relate to this when they read it. The easier you try to make something to read, the easier you try to make something relatable to everyone, the harder it is to write, just saying. So I kind of want to end with the song. I picked that song for a very particular reason. I found two composers that were used that I was thinking about using for the music for the meditation. But then I heard this song, and the song is from the Hunger Games soundtrack, from Catching Fire, which just came out. And I heard this song and I immediately felt drawn to it, particularly for the lyrics, in a cold night, there will be no fair fight. There will be no good night to turn and walk away. So burn me with fire, drown me with rain. I'm going to wake up screaming your name. Yes, I'm a sinner. Yes, I'm a saint. Whatever happens here, we remain. Whatever you've been through, doesn't matter. If it's the equivalent of what I've gone through, if it's something completely different, we're still here. You still have a chance to tell your story, and your story is absolutely unique to you and needs to be put out in the world in whatever form you choose to do it. I'm done.